Jewish Dietary Laws. The system of Jewish dietary laws, known as Kashrut, represents one of the most distinctive and enduring practices of Jewish life. From the biblical prohibitions of certain animals to the elaborate supervision of contemporary kosher certification, Kashrut has evolved into a complex framework governing what, when, and how Jews eat. These laws are not merely health regulations or cultural preferences, but are understood as divine commandments that sanctify the everyday act of eating. The Hebrew term kosher means fit or proper, indicating that food must meet specific criteria to be acceptable for Jewish consumption. Biblical foundations establish the basic categories of kashrut. The Torah permits eating only certain mammals that chew their cud and have split hooves, specifically cattle, sheep, goats, and deer. Pigs, rabbits, and camels are explicitly prohibited. Among water creatures, only those with fins and scales may be eaten, excluding shellfish and all other sea creatures. Birds are listed by species rather than characteristics, with birds of prey generally prohibited. Most insects are forbidden, though certain locusts are permitted, according to some interpretations. These categories create a distinctive Jewish diet that sets Israel apart from other nations. The prohibition of mixing meat and milk represents one of the most far-reaching biblical dietary laws. The Torah states 3 times, including the famous passage, "You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk," that this mixture is forbidden. Rabbinic interpretation extends this prohibition to all meat and all dairy products, requiring complete separation of these categories. Jews maintain separate dishes, utensils, and even dishwashers for meat and dairy. A waiting period between eating meat and dairy, varying from 1 to 6 hours depending on custom, ensures no mixture occurs in the body. Ritual slaughter, shechita, ensures that permitted animals are killed humanely and appropriately. A trained slaughterer, called a shochet, uses a perfectly sharp knife to sever the trachea and esophagus in a single motion, causing immediate loss of consciousness. This method is designed to minimize suffering while allowing proper drainage of blood. After slaughter, the animal is inspected for any signs of disease or defect that would render it unkosher. The lungs are particularly examined. Adhesions may render the animal glad kosher or non-kosher depending on their nature. The prohibition of blood requires special preparation of meat. Even properly slaughtered animals contain blood that must be removed through soaking in salting or broiling. This process, called koshering, makes the meat fit for consumption. The biblical verse, "You shall not eat the blood, for the blood is the life," underlies this requirement. Liver, which contains much blood, must be broiled rather than soaked. Eggs found in slaughtered birds are subject to inspection for blood spots. These practices ensure that the consumption of blood associated with life itself is strictly avoided. The rabbis develop extensive regulations to protect the integrity of kashrut. The concept of marit ayin prohibits actions that appear to violate the law, even if technically permitted, preventing confusion and scandal. The rule of bishul akum restricts certain foods cooked by non-Jews to prevent social mixing that might lead to intermarriage. The prohibition of stam yenam forbids wine touched by non-Jews, originally to prevent use in idolatrous libations. These extensions create a protective fence around the biblical commandments, ensuring they are not inadvertently violated. The separation of meat and dairy extends to processed foods and unexpected ingredients. Food additives, enzymes, and processing agents may derive from animal sources, requiring careful supervision. Gelatin, rennet, and certain fats pose particular challenges. Modern food chemistry has made kashrut more complex, as ingredients are often highly processed and their origins obscure. This complexity has given rise to the industry of kosher certification, where rabbis and trained supervisors inspect manufacturing facilities and verify ingredient lists. Kosher certification symbols, hechsherim, have become ubiquitous in the modern food industry. Organizations such as the Orthodox Union, Oklahoma Labs, and Star K employ mashgichim, supervisors, who visit production facilities to ensure compliance. The OU symbol, a U inside a circle, appears on hundreds of thousands of products worldwide. Certification involves not only ingredient verification, but also inspection of equipment, cleaning procedures, and production schedules. The global kosher market serves not only observant Jews, but also Muslims seeking halal products and others with dietary restrictions. Passover imposes additional dietary restrictions beyond the year-round laws. The prohibition of chametz, leavened grain products, requires the removal of all wheat, barley, rye, oats, and spelt that has been allowed to ferment. Homes are thoroughly cleaned to eliminate any trace of chametz. Special Passover dishes are used. Matzah, unleavened bread, becomes the staple food. The restrictions extend to derivatives and mixtures, creating a completely separate category of kosher for Passover products. The dietary laws of Passover commemorate the haste of the Exodus, when Israel had no time for their bread to rise. The laws of Yoshon and Chodosh concern the new grain harvest. Grain planted after Passover must not be eaten until the following Passover, according to certain interpretations. This restriction, observed by some traditional communities, requires tracking the origin and planting date of grain products. Similarly, the laws of Orlah prohibit eating fruit from trees in their first 3 years, with the 4th year's fruit considered holy. These agricultural laws connect Kashrut to the land of Israel and its produce, though they apply in the diaspora as well, according to some authorities. The separation of terumot and mazorot, priestly gifts and tithes, was historically part of Kashrut. In the land of Israel, portions of produce were set aside for priests, Levites, and the poor. While these laws are not currently practiced in their biblical form, they remind us that Kashrut originally included a social and economic dimension. The food system was designed to support the priestly class and the vulnerable. Contemporary movements to revive these practices in modern Israel raise questions about the relationship between ancient law and contemporary agriculture. Fish and meat may not be eaten together according to rabbinic custom, though this is not as strict as the meat-dairy separation. Some communities avoid eating fish and meat on the same plate, while others simply avoid eating them in the same bite. This custom derives from health concerns mentioned in the Talmud, though its observance varies. Similarly, the custom of washing the hands before eating bread, and the blessing, hamotzi, recited over bread structures, the meal and elevates the act of eating to religious significance. The laws of Kashrut extend to drinking as well as eating. Wine and grape juice require supervision to ensure they have not been used for idolatrous purposes or touched by those who might render them unfit. Hard liquor and beer are generally permitted if made from kosher ingredients, though some authorities are stringent about beverages produced in non-kosher wine casks. Water and soft drinks are inherently kosher, though certification ensures no problematic additives. The blessing recited over beverages acknowledges God as the creator of the fruit of the vine, or the creator of all things. Pareve, or neutral foods, occupy a special category in Kashrut. Fruits, vegetables, grains, eggs, and fish are neither meat nor dairy and may be eaten with either. This category enables culinary flexibility and ensures that vegetarians can easily maintain kosher kitchens. However, pareve foods can become meat or dairy through processing or contact. A vegetable cooked in a meat pot becomes meat. A cookie made with butter becomes dairy. The status of food depends not only on its inherent nature, but on its preparation and contact. The kitchen becomes a site of religious observance through kashrut, separate sinks, dishwashers, and countertops for meat and dairy prevent accidental mixing. Color coding of dishes and utensils helps maintain separation. Some kitchens have separate ovens and refrigerators. Others use the same appliances with careful scheduling and cleaning. The kosher kitchen requires knowledge, vigilance, and organization. It transforms domestic space into a place of commandment fulfillment, making the home a mikdash miyat, a small sanctuary. Eating in non-kosher restaurants and homes presents challenges for observant Jews. Some will eat only raw fruits and vegetables in such settings. Others avoid eating out entirely except at kosher establishments. Business travel and social occasions require planning and sometimes difficult conversations. The laws of kashrut thus affect social relationships and professional opportunities. They create a boundary between Jews and non-Jews that some find protective and others find isolating. The decision about how strictly to observe kashrut in public settings marks different approaches to Jewish identity. Theological explanations of kashrut abound throughout Jewish history. Maimonides suggests that the prohibited animals are unhealthy, or that their consumption develops bad character traits. Maimonides sees the laws as mysterious decrees beyond human comprehension, observed simply because God commanded them. Modern thinkers suggest that kashrut promotes mindfulness, ethical eating, or Jewish distinctiveness. The diversity of explanations reflects the persistence of the practice, despite changing circumstances, and the human need to find meaning in commandedness. Kashrut has become a marker of Jewish identity in the modern world. For some, strict observance signals commitment to tradition and community. For others, selective observance or conscious rejection marks different relationships to Jewish heritage. The kosher-style deli, serving traditional Jewish foods without rabbinic supervision, represents a secularized form of culinary identity. The proliferation of kosher options in contemporary supermarkets makes observance easier than in previous generations, while also commercializing and potentially diluting the practice's religious significance. Contemporary debates about kashrut address new ethical and environmental concerns. Some question whether factory farming meets the humane intentions of shechita. Others seek to extend kashrut to include ethical treatment of workers, sustainable agriculture, and animal welfare beyond the technical requirements of Jewish law. The concept of eco-kashrut, or sazek heksher, applies Jewish values to contemporary food systems. These developments challenge the traditional boundaries of kashrut while affirming its continued relevance to Jewish ethical concern. The future of kashrut will likely involve continued tension between tradition and innovation, particularism and universalism, law and spirit. As food technology advances, new questions will arise about laboratory-grown meat, genetically modified organisms, and synthetic foods. As Jewish communities become more diverse, different approaches to kashrut will continue to develop. Yet the basic structure, separation of categories, prohibition of blood, mindfulness in eating, seems likely to persist. Kashrut remains one of Judaism's most tangible and enduring practices, sanctifying the everyday act of nourishment and maintaining connection across generations of Jewish history.